Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast, way out on the Pacific. Good morning to the American Samoa and Guam folks who are getting up at 3 a.m. to join us. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. It's a good day outside, and I'm excited about today's training for 5 reasons federal agencies should buy from women-owned small businesses, women-owned small business government contractors. But before we get going, I want to share a tip as a thank you. I like starting the day off with the training off with a tip that just as a thank you for those showing up on time and early, because when you show up early and on time, you're actually helping LinkedIn let others know that the training is going live. And when people attend a live training, they get into the community. So it's good stuff. So today's tip is about communication. The biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it took place at all. The biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it took place at all. It's got to be one of my all-time favorite quotes that I heard. And if you just listen to it, it makes so much sense, because often when people are running into friction, et cetera, it's happening because they think they have communicated, but they haven't. And it's one of my favorite things to get people to slow down and stop with customers like the federal government. We don't need to assume that we don't want to assume that buyers know we exist. We don't want to assume that they have looked at us and rejected us somewhere in DSBS or our website. If they haven't said something to us outright, then they haven't said it. But sometimes we have whole conversations with people and conversations with buyers on an assumption level. And so the reason I like this line about the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it took place at all is if you believe that, then you pause for a second before going too far with a teammate or a federal buyer, and you say, hey, can we just level set? Can we just make sure we're actually talking about the same thing? Whatever it is. And an example in the federal space that I have this is I've had small business professionals like try to push you off and go, it's not me. You need to go talk to somebody else. But they're thinking I'm trying to sell something. And I'm not there to do that. I'm just there to ask them a few questions. And when we pause for a second, when I slow it way down and make sure that they understand that I'm not trying to get them to buy what I sell, but just to answer a couple of questions that really they're in a good position, it helps them. So as you're having communication with people out there on your project teams in your company, with your customers in the federal government, just remember that the biggest problem with communication is sometimes the illusion that it took place at all. Okay, so I'm going to drop this scroll bar. We're going to get rocking and rolling. I appreciate the people who are communicating in the chat. So, Russ, coming in from Hawaii, first person in from Hawaii, and I think it's like 6 a.m. where you're at. So welcome to Russ and to everybody else out there on chat. There are 12 million women-owned small businesses in America as of 2022. And there are 85,000 women-owned small businesses that are registered to sell to the federal government. Women-owned small businesses can deliver great value to federal agencies in support of their mission and helping them meet the requirements that they have. But not enough women-owned small businesses are winning contracts, right? And that's not what we want. Even the 5% goal that the SBA sets and rarely meets is far too low. I never understood how women can be 50% of the population, but 5% goal is enough for federal contracts. That kind of stuff doesn't make sense to me. And I always try to rebel against what I think is unfair. But sometimes we just, again, need to communicate. And we need to help federal buyers see the value that women-owned small businesses can bring to their agencies, can bring to their mission, and can help them with requirements. We need to help these federal agency buyers understand the value of women-owned small businesses so they start awarding more contracts to women-owned small businesses. So let's go ahead and talk about today's training. It's going to be about why federal agencies should buy from women-owned small businesses. I'm tackling today's training as if I'm talking to a federal agency buyer. Hey, this is why you should be considering women-owned small businesses, or really anybody, the program office, et cetera. This is why you should consider women-owned small businesses in support of your mission. But I also want to talk to those of you who are on industry side, because it might give you some tips for how to go communicate your value to the government. One thing I would like to ask is, as we go along, I'm going to be talking about different reasons agencies should buy. If you have thoughts, like if what I say resonates with you, put it in the chat. If you have an expansion of what I'm saying, feel free. Today's kind of one where I'm looking for a little more dialogue from what you think as well, right? If I'm missing some reasons, throw those into the chat as well. If you don't know who if you don't know who I am, I'm a great speaker. My name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my daily federal sales training where I teach tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. Since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow the process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results, and that's what I want for you. Do me a favor before we go too much farther, help buyers remember who you are, put your company name into the chat, put 2 or 3 words that describe your core competency, what you sell. Help me remember who you are so I can make introductions when it makes sense. Help others in the community. This is your community. Help them remember who you are by putting that information into the chat. If you haven't done this already, make sure you go to the GovCon Chamber's website at govconchamber.com and get these free directories. These are the federal directories that we put out. Took a lot of work to put them together, and we love them because of the value that they bring you. But you can go in there and just download them. Small business specialists, over 1,000 names, numbers, and emails. Long range forecasters, I think 100, close to 100 forecasts in there. And same thing with the vendor supplier portal, both federal agency supplier portals and large prime supplier portals. But go in there and download that. Make sure you have access to those directories because they'll save you tons of research time. One last thing I wanted to do is, before we get started, is just say thank you to the GovCon Chamber of Commerce sustaining members. We don't take money from the federal government at all. We don't take money from large primes as sponsors, et cetera. Sustaining members like you are the ones who help make this training available, make those directories available. And so we just wanted to say thank you on our behalf and on behalf of the people who are benefiting from it. I want to give you a quick story, by the way, about those directories. I had somebody reach out to me who had the directory to say thank you, because they had another small business was trying to get in to an agency, get a meeting set up, and they had, no good contact information. One person called the other person. She looked at our directory, found the right information, and that person had a meeting. And all of that happened within 5 or 10 minutes because they had the directory at their hands. I'm going to tell you about how you can actually have it on your phone as well, but make sure you get it and download it. And the reason I'm saying that is, again, don't just thank us, thank the sustaining members. All right, let's go ahead and dive into today's training. I'm just going to make sure all my ducks are in a row as I'm moving in. It's a fire hose worth of information. Oh, by the way, just as a quick aside, yesterday, if you were here in the training, I said that if you want, during Women History Month and what we call Women's Business Month, during this month, we're offering a free gap analysis on your visibility to federal buyers. If you want that, go to the govconchamber.com website /WOSB. Don't just put it in the comments. Make sure you go over there and fill it in, because we had a ton of people putting it there yesterday. And that's where we're tracking your information to make sure we're getting you the report back. But that's govconchamber.com /WOSB. Okay, let's talk about 5 reasons federal agencies should buy and use women-owned small businesses in support of their agency mission and to meet the requirements that they have. These are in no particular order. And so as I go along, again, give me feedback on whether they ring true with you and which ones I might be missing. But the first one is women-owned small businesses have high staff retention. And this is huge, right? High staff retention means people come and get a job at a woman-owned small business, and then they stay there. They stay there for a long time. And so their turnover is very low. In these businesses, they build a culture that is focused on employee first, right? And by the way, this is me speaking for all women-owned small businesses. I get that I'm grouping everybody together, but as I go along, these are the general values of women-owned small businesses that I think agencies can appreciate. But this culture of employee first over customer first. In the old days, I've been in this sales business for a long time. It was always like customer first. The problem is, if you take care of customers first, then that meant the employees are second. But if you make the employees first, then the employees are making the customer first, if that makes sense. And so leadership in these organizations are really making sure that the employees feel appreciated, which goes a long way to them having a high staff retention, people staying in the company a long time. For the federal agencies, high retention means that there's low turnover on the contracts. If you award a woman-owned small business contract and they have high staff retention, then the people they put on the contracts are going to stay on those contracts a long time. And you don't have the price hiccups or the cost of turnovers, the work not getting done or having to get people's security clearances, et cetera. The disruption to the contract based on turnover is not good for the federal government. And so being able to see organizations with high retention is a good thing. And then also low turnover. When you think about low turnover on contracts, it also means that you're reducing the risk and you have this high level of institutional knowledge. And so low risk means that, again, just the work is not getting done. That's a risk enough on its own that the government wouldn't want. But the other part that I'm talking about is high institutional knowledge. When somebody comes in and they stay in their companies, like an employee comes into a woman-owned small business, and then they get on a contract and they stay a long time, you have their institutional knowledge, their knowledge about the contract and the agency for a long time, perhaps throughout the entire contract. And that's good because it means that, as new people are coming on into the agency, et cetera, the government contractor, this woman-owned small business, almost becomes that source of who the agency can turn to for how did we used to do this. Okay, so the first one is high staff retention. The second one is women-owned small businesses are responsive, flexible, agile, responsive to the government needs, right? And so one of the first things you can think about is you have direct access as a federal agency customer of a woman-owned small business to the owner of that business. They're very committed to issue resolution, right? The escalation path at a large prime contractor is like through this person and this person and then this person and this person, and never are you getting to a person who can just make that decision independently, really, like an owner can in a company. And so when you have direct access to an owner, you have basically direct access to issue resolution on anything that might come up in the contract. And issues aren't always problems, they're changes sometimes. And that's the second part that goes with women small businesses are responsive, is that they're able to change on a dime to match changing mission priorities. For example, a lot of my customers support DoD. And I remember when the war, so a year ago when the war in Ukraine started, there was an event, an Air Force event that we were at, and a lot of the speakers couldn't be there because they were now focused on this whole new change in the world that was happening. And for me, it was all Air Force people at the time, but those DoD personnel, those agency personnel, all of a sudden, what was the highest priority to them yesterday was different today. And they need people and companies that can adapt with them. Women-owned small businesses have that ability to be responsive, change on a dime, and to go, okay, how can we help? What can we do? They don't add a level of bureaucracy to the discussion by saying, oh, I'm sorry, the contract says this, the requirements of this, we're going to have to go get a mod and all these big things. I mean, huge discussions that a large bureaucracy, a large business brings. A woman-owned small business, when you get access to the owner or you get access to leaders in that organization who are empowered to make decisions, then they're responsive to your changing priorities. There's no excess management, no excess having to loop in lawyers and legal people to deal with the mods. It's just us looking at you saying, how can we help? And that's a huge value women-owned businesses bring federal agencies, is this responsiveness to your changing priorities. The third one is extensive past performance. And so women-owned small businesses, even despite the fact that I think they're not winning nearly as much as they should be winning, they are winning, and they have extensive experience throughout multiple agencies supporting some of the most mission critical priorities that those agencies have, the requirements and contracts that they have. Give you a couple of examples. And if you look just over the last 2 years, women-owned small businesses currently have won 1,397 contracts that are $5 million a year or more, right? That's huge. That's, you got 1,400 businesses winning contracts that are $5 million or more, so easily that many in that range, $25 million contracts should be going to women-owned small businesses. Because when you think about $5 million a year times 5 years for a typical contract, they can be doing that. But just taking that number higher, in the last 2 years, 51 women-owned small businesses have won contracts that are over $25 million in value a year. So this is huge. They're demonstrating that they have this extensive past performance that can meet the need of an agency. If your agency or if an agency has a requirement And larges are trying to come in and say smalls can't do it because, this is over 5 million or this is over 20 million. Well, women-owned small businesses are proving through their past performance that they do the work currently. Not they can do it, but they are doing this work currently. Just one last example on extensive past performance is that over the past 2 years, just in my quick research, 13 women-owned small businesses have won contracts over $50 million a year. This is huge. They're running these contracts at $50 million a year. Easily, they can support your agency. They can support any agency, right? Is there any number that you think a woman-owned small business couldn't support? When you really think about a large prime, what do they do when they start having bigger contracts? They start getting teams, right? Well, a woman-owned small business can do the same thing if they're looking at opportunities that are 100 million and beyond. They can do the work. Right? We're not saying bring in somebody who has no experience, but there are thousands of women-owned small businesses with proven experience that can support agency requirements going forward. And sometimes, that illusion that communication happens at all, sometimes agencies don't even realize that there are women-owned small businesses, many, many women-owned small businesses with proven past performance in federal agencies. Number 4, women-owned small businesses are subject matter experts. And by the way, this one I could use a little help as we're going forward. In the chat, let me know if what your subject matter expertise is. I know I put core competency, and maybe that's the same thing. But one of the things that federal agencies need to keep in mind is that women-owned small businesses, it's not this generalist business that, hey, we can do everything this well. No, they have subject matter expertise around what they're doing. Just a couple of basic facts that are out there, right? Most women-owned small businesses, business owners, or many small business owners have master's degrees and PhDs. I can't tell you the number of PhDs I see constantly around cyber, and they've got their PhD in cyber or in program management, being able to run these $100 million or $1 billion programs and support that for the government. When you just think about the bigger numbers from college graduates, right? And you think about many women business owners are college graduates. Well, right now it is switched over where 58% of college graduates now are women, right? And so we're trending towards 6 out of 10 college graduates are women. And these women business owners are able to sit there and address the needs with their expertise. They're industry leaders. You can go around, see constantly. We might have people right now in the live where I see women-owned business owners or women business owners being brought in to serve on panels or just be keynote speakers for their area of expertise. They might be coming in. I see this all the time in cybersecurity. I see it in software development, where they're not just running a business that might be a software development firm, but they actually are the software developers, right? And so they have this expertise around that. Supply chain logistics, this ability to deal with DODs. One of the biggest challenges is the supply chain and the logistics that goes on with buying inventory and then getting it to the military services that need it. There is so many women-owned small businesses that have a subject matter expertise around that. And then the last one is women-owned small businesses are supporting the federal agencies right now in every area of the federal common goods. And so if you don't know this, the way the government buys is through common goods. There's 10 common goods for all federal agencies, and there's 9 more that are unique to DOD, like ships or something, maybe even ammunition. But when you start looking at these different categories, facilities and construction, human capital, right? Workforce development. I just put out a post about that today. Industrial products and services, people who are selling, in particular, products around that side, the machinery and components that are needed to, make the government run. IT, obviously, I've talked a lot about in office management, but professional services, that's huge on the fintech side, the legal tech side, program management, et cetera. Security and protection, right? Women-owned businesses are in the security and protection business, supporting different agencies, departments like DHS, and then travel and lodging, transportation, logistics services. Wherever you look, you're going to find women-owned small businesses in there supporting federal government. They are subject matter experts. And the last one that I'm going to talk about is strong organizational foundation, right? Women-owned small businesses have a strong back office team focused on ensuring employees are getting what they need to make sure the customers are taken care of. and that the customers are being taken care of, that there's a strong back office team focused on customer satisfaction as well as earlier employee retention. They're hyper-focused on customer satisfaction, right? This is something that women-owned small businesses make a point of looking at the customers that they serve and making sure they're getting what they need. Where large businesses, there tends to be this focus on compliance to the letter of the contract. Small businesses are looking at first, are you happy with what you're getting? Are we meeting your expectations? Is the relationship good? Will it grow long-term? What we care about is long-term growth in there. Just some basics of strong organizational foundation. Many women-owned small businesses have the highest security clearances, top secret facility clearances, TSSCI and full poly, the ability to hire people at that level, to attract them and recruit them and bring them in to serve the contracts. And so they're able to bring folks in to support federal customers in the needs that they have. And then the last thing is women-owned small businesses are not just going it alone. They're very good at building strategic relationships with other industry partners. So whether women-owned small businesses or veteran-owned 8A or hub-zone small businesses, or even large primes. So they have the ability to scale up. When I talk about going after $100 or $200 million opportunity, because of the strategic relationships they develop, they're able to move that back up. And so those are reasons federal buyers can really count on women-owned small businesses and why they should be looking to women-owned small businesses. I did want to just look into the chat and just see if I saw any others that I missed. I'm going to scroll to the top really quick and just pulling it down. You know, one of the things, 7 o'clock, business development thing, helping small businesses create their pipeline against their past performance. Got it. So one of the things I see in here is a complaint, and actually one of the things that the biggest thing that I did, and I might end with this because you know, sometimes we need to have a truth conversation. And one of the things that I did to help hub-zone firms push $3 billion to their firms in 1 year was get them to stop blaming the government and to just look at what they could do. So an example is hub-zone firms. When I came on the scene and I had started a hub-zone firm and then got into the community, one of the biggest complaints was that there wasn't enough set-asides, right? And the reason they did not respond to sources sought was because there wasn't enough set-asides. And what I taught hub-zone small businesses just en masse was that there's no way a contracting officer is ever going to set something aside to a hub-zone if they don't think hub zones are going to show up. And if hub zones don't care enough to show up during sources sought, then why would I think they would care enough to show up during RFP? Well, once that mindset started to shift and we started to respond to sources sought, we started seeing more opportunities go forward. I've heard people complain about category management as a problem to why women-owned small businesses are not earning or winning more contracts or having more set-asides. At best, there's a legitimate complaint around best-in-class contract vehicles, this consolidation. But category management, if you go to GSA and you look at it, it's just categorizing the way they buy and trying to group it. And that was another thing that I said to hub-zone firms is like, don't worry about what you can't change. If we worry about all these things we can't change, then what we're doing is putting the control for our success into somebody else's hands. Congress, the contracting officer, our competitors, et cetera. And instead, if we look to ourselves and go, well, what can I do? Because if I just complain, I won't get anything. But if I sit there and take responsibility and not for their actions, but just, and not blame, I'm not taking blame, but if I take responsibility, then I'll have control. So an example is, and I think I'll end with this perfect example. I talked with somebody a few weeks back in a training session. I said, you need to write 4 proposals every month. And so they took it to heart. They took all the numbers that I had talked about and they started writing 4 proposals and they won 2 proposals, right? It doesn't matter what Congress is doing. Yes, of course it matters, but it doesn't. It doesn't matter what the contracting officers are doing because there is no conspiracy of contracting officers against women-owned small businesses. They actually want us to succeed. And so there's no conspiracy on the contract vehicles. They don't mean for it to be doing what it's doing. And so the government and Congress are looking at contracting vehicles and trying to figure that out. but that shouldn't spill down into our day-to-day activities. Our day-to-day activities should be about what can I do to start going after contracts and winning. And if I run into an agency that doesn't seem to be working, then move to a different agency. I did a training earlier, and you might want to go watch it, but which agencies are most friendly to 8As? I'm going to do another training just like that next week, and it's going to be which agencies are most friendly to women-owned small businesses. That's where you want to go. And I'll give you a hint. Naval Facility NAVFAC out of the Navy, that's one of the most favorable to women-owned small businesses out there. So take a look at them. Okay, so I'm running out of time here. I just want to come back that saying if you want to get the complimentary gap analysis on your small business, Visibility GAP Analysis, make sure you go to www.govconchamber.com/WOSB. And remember, right, as you think about trying to communicate why women-owned small businesses are valuable to an agency, federal agency's mission, and to be worth working with, think of these 4 reasons I gave, come up with your own reasons on why your company in particular is valuable to an agency, and then communicate it to that agency. The 5 that I mentioned were high staff retention, which means low turnover, right? Responsiveness, flexible, this ability to change on a dime when the priorities change. We have extensive past performance. We bring that experience. We're subject matter experts, right? We're not generalists, but we come in at the top level here at artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, elevators, right? We bring subject matter expertise. And the last thing is that we have strong organizational foundations, which means our companies will be there for a long, long time. You don't have to worry about our companies falling apart because the foundation wasn't strong. And so those 5 things are really attractive, I think, to buyers, and things you might want to communicate to the buyers. So, okay, I hope you have a great day. Remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in the next training.